सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णुः गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरः गुरु साक्षात् परब्रह्म तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः। समस्त जन कल्याणे निरतं करुणामयं नमामि चिन्मयं देवं सद्गुरुं ब्रह्म विद्वरम्। ॐ पार्थाय प्रतिबोधितां भगवता नारायणेन स्वयं व्यासेन ग्रथितां पुराणमुनिना मध्ये महाभारतम् अद्वैतामृतवर्षिणीं भगवतीम् अष्टादशाध्यायिनीम् अम्ब त्वामनुसन्दधामि भगवद्गीते भवद्वेषिणीम्। यं ब्रह्मा वरुणेन्द्ररुद्रमरुतः स्तुन्वन्ति दिव्यैस्तवैः वेदैः साङ्गपदक्रमोपनिषदैः गायन्ति यं सामगाः। ध्यानावस्थिततद्गतेन मनसा पश्यन्ति यं योगिनः यस्यान्तं न विदुः सुरासुरगणाः। देवाय तस्मै नमः देवाय तस्मै नमः। So we are on the fourth chapter from today. This fourth chapter is called Jnana Karma Sannyasi Yoga. Literally it means renunciation of action in knowledge. So the third chapter was about Karma Yoga. So how to act and act in selfless way so that the karma doesn't bind us. Act according to Swadharma, act not compromising with the intellectual conviction. All that we saw in the third chapter. Action, however selfless it may be, will also not lead to the permanent happiness or peace that we seek. Because action itself is bound, action itself is limited, it is in time. And the result that action can give also is limited. So it is not there now, it will come later, and after some time it will not remain. Hence, no matter what we attain through action, what we really seek, that permanent peace, is not possible through any amount of activity, good or bad. Now then why should we do good action? To purify the mind. Because only a mind which is calm and quiet will be able to know the truth. So knowledge of the truth is the goal. And that knowledge of the truth is not the truth somewhere out there. It is our true nature. Today we are not able to experience that. Because the mind is disturbed, selfish, wandering. So to prepare that mind to become aware of one's own true nature is the purpose of karma. Action is not meant for achievements only. That is external. The real purpose of action is Chitta Shuddhi, purification of the mind. So this chapter is about how action, when it has been done in the spirit of Karma Yoga, prepares a person, and what is that knowledge. How will one proceed from action to knowledge? What are the steps required in between? That is this chapter, fourth chapter. So in this, Bhagavan begins this fourth chapter by saying that this knowledge of Karma Yoga, what he gave in third chapter, has been given by him to Lord Sun. Imam Vivasvate Yogam. That I gave this knowledge to Lord Sun. Vivasvan Proktavan Aham Avyayam. This imperishable knowledge of Karma Yoga and of the absolute self. He gave this knowledge to Lord Sun, who gave it to Vivaswan Manave Praha, Manu, who is the Prajapati who began this creation, like the Adam and Eve, like that Manu and Shatrupa. Manu Ikshvakave Abravit, and Manu gave it to the king Ikshvaku, in whose dynasty Bhagwan Ram was born. So this is the beginning of the 4th chapter, meaning this knowledge, what does it mean it was given to Sun? It means that this knowledge is eternal. Just like a product when it is sold, along with that product there is a manual which is sent. Same way one believes that this knowledge is eternal knowledge revealed in the Vedas. So right at the time of creation, this knowledge also is available. So he says, I gave this to Lord Sun, because Sun is symbolic of beginning of life. Without Sun there is no life. All life will die. So symbolically, the beginning of creation itself. Meaning this knowledge, that's why it says Avyayam, Proktavanaham Avyayam. This infinite knowledge, eternal knowledge, which will not change by time. It is not that Karma Yoga in, let us say, in Satyuga is different from Karma Yoga now. Expression may be different, but the principle remains the same, of serving, of helping, of being selfless, of seeing the oneness. So he says, having seen, this knowledge I gave to Lord Sun, who gave it to Manu. Manu is the, in English I don't know what do you call it, the first man. Or not even man, so he's not. They started the whole creation, Manu and Shatrupa. They are sons of Brahmaji.
Who is the first one?
Huh?
First person to came?
Yeah. Adam and Eve type. So every culture believes like that there is one being who was there before. And because of them the creation has started. Because one needs to know the cause, so one will say that okay, Manu was the cause. That's why this is Manvantara. I don't know if you remember, if you are aware, in the puja they will always say, in the Sankalpa when it is taken, it starts from that. Shubhe Shobhane Muhurate Adya Brahmana Shveta Varaha Kalpe Vaivasvata Manvantare Kali Yuge Prathama Pade Jambu Dvipe Bharata Varshe Bharata Khande, like that it is. So from the place where I am doing the puja and the time till the cosmos, the galaxies, I am connected. A whole connection is brought down. That was the GPS of that time. In Sanskrit, you find out where is your positioning, global positioning system. So Sankalpa, so the idea is that Manu, so Manu is the primordial being. The reason why Bhagavan is saying all this is this knowledge has been passed on from the time of creation. So one reason he is saying this is it is not something which he has invented. The whole Gita actually, if you see, is a great revolution in the time of Arjuna itself. Like the 3rd chapter especially, because he gave the whole different meaning to the word yajna. What was limited only to ritualism, the whole meaning to yajna was given by Bhagavan very differently. That this is cooperative endeavor for a selfless cause, and everyone coming together and then sharing the results. So the whole meaning was given very differently, readapted to those times. So somebody may say that maybe this is your own interpretation, your own theory. That's why Bhagavan says no, this has been there from the time of creation itself. And this knowledge has been passed on. And if you see these three, the Sun, Manu, Ikshvaku, they all are the kings, they are Kshatriyas. So it's interesting that Bhagavan says, he did not say he gave this knowledge to the great Saptarishis and then they passed it on to somebody else, then they passed it. So many times one asks the question, should politics and spirituality go together or should it be separate? What do you think? Should be separate or no?
They should be together, then they'll be.
Should be together?
Yeah. Spirituality doesn't mean religion. You're not talking about only being some part of some religion or to have the thing. Spirituality means. I would
So
say
then why
something-
is spirituality required in politics?
Code of conduct.
Code of conduct, yes.
So that code of conduct can be without spirituality and religion also.
Selfish.
The reason why it is needed is that it gives a bigger picture of life, which hardly anyone else gives. Then everything falls into place. Why should I be selfless? Why should I serve people? The basic cause is the selfishness where man doesn't understand, and no other field makes a person understand the importance of selflessness and make it applicable. Not only selflessness, everything, basic fundamental clarity is not there. What am I seeking is only not there. Which field is giving us that knowledge? So spirituality is not separate from any aspect of life. The reason why so many times one goes through stress, tension, youngsters commit suicide, people go through so much of depression, relationship issues happen, country is not governed properly, families are having splits. It's all because spirituality is not strengthened. And the more and more human being goes further away from spirituality, more and more selfish one will become, more and more individualistic, more and more conflicts. And today we are living in such an age where they don't want to do anything with spirituality nor religion. One thinks that they are better off without that. But it is like patient rejecting the medicine. Cure will not happen. So in those days, Bhagavan says that he gave this knowledge and these kings passed it on. Kings are also symbolic of protection. So they also protected and they are the people who are looked upon. If this knowledge is lived by the rishis, is there anything great about that? That is individually they are living. But if somebody who is living in the society is going to live this knowledge and still is dealing with power, pleasure, money, position, everything, then one says, I want. Then this knowledge is applicable to me. So rishis, they renounce quietly and they live in the Vedic times, in the forest, immersed in their thinking about the Vedas, meditation, self-control, all that, which is the path they have chosen exclusively to renounce. But then those who are in the society, for them spirituality is important. That is another point conveyed by this shloka, that it is very, very crucial. And it should happen right from not childhood, from conception onwards. So even today, if we want to revive our country and bring back the country to where it was, it is inevitable that spirituality has to come in. If you read Ignited Minds, how many of you have read Ignited Minds? Anybody? Nobody? What a book to read actually. Written by Dr. Abdul Kalam, long back. Very thin, this much only it is. So in that he gives different aspects about developing nation, developed nation, how the mind is ignited, what is the importance of study of the scriptures, and how he spent so much of time studying the Gita, the Quran, the Bible, Dhammapada, Tirukkural, what all he studied. And met so many saints also. So in that first point he writes, for a developing nation, especially for our country to become a developed nation, first point, in 4 points he writes. In that first point he writes is, integrate spirituality with education. And there is a scientist writing. If we say, one will say that aap to bolenge hi. And a scientist who has met hundreds of youth, who has been in the teaching profession, And what a gentleman he was. He came from the teaching profession, went back to teaching. Came to the Rashtrapati Bhavan with 2 bags, went out with 2 bags. So, he writes that spirituality must be integrated with education. No aspect of life can be divorced from spirituality. So, in the earlier days, this knowledge was being that way integrated into one's daily life. The theory also, understanding also. So, even in the Gurukul system, this knowledge was being imparted along with the secular sciences of whatever, maths, chemistry, physics, biology, all that. So, having said this, Bhagavan says that though this knowledge is indestructible, it has been given, it is there right in the beginning of creation. So another point to understand is whenever the creation gets into dissolution, it is not that knowledge gets destroyed, it only becomes unmanifest. Again with the creation it comes back. Just like how when we go to sleep, it is not that we forget everything. Children know sometimes they believe like that. They say during exam I don't want to sleep much. If I sleep I will forget. But it's exactly opposite. If you don't sleep you will forget. So anyway, when we go to sleep the knowledge is there, dormant. The moment we wake up again it comes back. So this cycle of creation, in our culture cycle of creation is, time is cyclic, it's not linear. So creation, sustain and destruction. Again creation, sustain, destruction. It goes round, round, round. So every time there is a destruction also, the knowledge doesn't get destroyed. But definitely knowledge goes through decline. And that is worst actually. So he says in the second verse, Evam parampara praptam imam rajarshayo viduhu. Through this parampara, the lineage what he said, son gave to Manu, Manu gave to Ikshvaku, that is the parampara. And that way it has come down to us till today. Protected also, lived by so many great saints. But in time, just like everything changes in time, time is in fact the great destroyer. Kalo Jagat Bhakshaka. It consumes everything. So he says here that in time, even this spiritual knowledge goes through decline. Sakale neha mahata yogo nashta parantapa. That O Parantapa, Arjuna is called as Parantapa. Because he did lots of penance to acquire weapons. And also another meaning of Parantapa is one who scorches his enemies. Meaning scorcher of foes. Internal enemies, external enemies, both. So he says that, O Parantapa, this knowledge in time has gone through decline. Sakaleneha mahata yogo nashta paranta. Over a great period of time, this knowledge has got decadent, decline. And you will see that now. Generation after generation, what is the difference? Just in one generation, you just think. What all we used to do, today hardly people, the next generation does. So many things, they are not carried forward only. So many traditions. Can you name any?
Get him early in the morning.
Get up early in the morning, okay. Even a simple thing, watering the tulsi, that is also gone. Sankranti we used to fly so many kites. Now because of birds and whatever, that is one aspect, but generally only the enthusiasm is gone. So many traditions like that. In South India, on Friday, when we were small, all these women and the girls and all of them, they will have this, they will be yellow, full face will be yellow. Because they apply turmeric. Haldi, turmeric is haldi. They'll apply full haldi. Now you will not find anybody doing that. In the morning they will come out and do that kolam. Rangoli. Today's girls will do. You ask them to hold and do that. They will get that ready-made thing, put that powder and make blocks of kolam. Many such traditions. I am talking about the simple traditions. We are talking about spiritual knowledge. Regularly the Gayatri mantra, japa and Sandhya Vandan used to be done. Today how many people do? It is terrible nowadays what happens. One day before the marriage, that fellow's Janev Samskar will be done. What is the point of that Janev Samskar? He is not going, and they will ask that question also to us. Swamiji, is it necessary to do this? Why it's what I do? Anyway, I am not going to be able to maintain the vows which are going with it. So I can't chant Gayatri Mantra 11 times. So why should I do? It's better not to do. I fire them straight away. Saying just because you can't do doesn't mean that you stop, you don't take it up only. Like that the whole tradition will go. So many things which are good for us. It's not just about maintaining tradition. It is what are you doing for the intellectual sharpness and alertness and clarity and single pointedness. When the mind gets stressed out, and then go pay some heavy amount and go to some stress relief campaign and sit in that stress relief seminar, and that fellow will make you do what? Sit quietly. Breathe in. Breathe out. Relax. Chant the glorious mantra. Oh, it's some music that fellow will put it on. That the one will listen. But every day that father used to chant Gayatri Mantra, grandfather used to chant Gayatri Mantra, gone.
Now you don't need to chant, you just put on the cassette.
I agree. So many people come and ask, Gayatri Mantra is good, it creates good vibrations, so vibration is sound, so we put on the cassette, still vibration will create. I said no, it will not create. Because it's not just sound vibration, it is the bhavana, the feeling, the mind which creates that vibration. How much one wants that shortcut, I tell you. मुझे कुछ नहीं करना, लेकिन मुझे सब वातावरण अच्छा चाहिए, बेनिफिट चाहिए, मन शांत होना चाहिए, लेकिन मैं कुछ नहीं करूँगा.
Swamiji, in my growing up days, which is decades ago, when we were talking of traditions, when the lights used to come on, we used to say the Shubham Karote, and all the children used to touch the feet of the elders to take their blessings, which I remember very clearly.
Morning when we take bath, we do that, and the evening. Now they'll ask, why should I take the feet? No, nothing wrong in asking. Anybody can ask a question. But once the logic has been told and understood, one should be able to follow. Today we give too much of freedom to our children. Unnecessary. Some form of enforcement and discipline is necessary at some level. In my childhood, I have never heard my mother asking me, what will you eat today? Never. What is cooked, you eat. If you can't eat, drink water, sleep. Chup. Kha liya baith ke chupchaap. I mean, of course, by time things will change. Today the change is terrific. Proper meal is cooked only once, which is lunchtime. Dinner every day is some single item. Some continental food, some pizza, some burger, some chips, something is there. So many parents, they tell us, Swamiji, evening is only one item. Time does change, but certain things which are the culture part of it, which are good for us, which is the spiritual inheritance, we ourselves don't do. Forget our children. How many people do Shraddha? They will not do. The very meaning of that word Shraddha is Shraddhaya Kritam, that which is done with faith. And once I know the significance of it, there is so much of depth to that, one should just do. But it will come, we are waiting. It will come via the West in a scientifically packaged Shraddha kit you will get. Then you buy. Then you start doing. What am I doing? I am doing Shraddha, You you just see everything will get rooted there and come. Meditation, simply you teach them meditation happily, they will not do. They will want to now buy. It went to the West and came back as a meditation kit. So they will give you the pillow and then the light for it and then the fragrance for everything. Go and buy it. Clothes also, all that. Yoga also went there, turned and came back. What they made of our yoga? That which is meant to slow down not only the body but still the mind. Now yogic postures are done in speed. What is that? Surya Namaskar.
Power yoga.
Power yoga. Baap re baap. 100 Surya Namaskar. Who was that? There was one actress who used to do that. Zero, size 0. 100 Surya Namaskar in a day. I said, ye kya karte ho? 100 Surya Namaskar. Matlab, you are supposed to do 12 only. And stay in that posture as long as you can. वो 12 करते करते तो पूरा कार्डियो हो जाएगा. 100 करने की क्या जरूरत है? But no, that is called Sakareneya Mahata Yogo Nashta Parantam. Slowly that significance goes. Now what is important for us to know here is that when the culture declines, Gurudev always used to say, without culture, man is a vulture. So when the culture declines, there will be disturbance in the society and we must be sensitive to that. In our culture, luckily, there have been great masters who have sacrificed their lives and energy and time, comforts and come to revive that culture from time to time, so the culture is still living. Otherwise, you see in so many cultures, have they not become dead and extinct? They are gone. Greek culture, Mesopotamian culture, Egyptian culture, Roman culture, Babylonian culture, Mayan culture, you can count. So many cultures, all gone now in museums now. Because when that cultural decline was happening, every culture was glorious in its own time. And what is the glory about the culture? Please remember, the glory of the culture is not the external expressions. It is the value and the vision of life behind it. That is the glory of that culture. Gurudev always used to say, what is a culture? He said, geographical area. 4 aspects constitute a culture. Geographical area, where a group of people live together for a long period of time, following a set of values. The fragrance of their life is called as a culture. So in a place where there is a group of people and they are living for a long period of time, following a certain way of life and certain values, that is called as a culture. So external expression may change, but the core, the values which are there must remain intact. That is what is the attempt of the Gita. When Bhagavan said ki yajna, he has reinterpreted the core value, which is selflessness, sharing, coming together, sinking individual differences, all that remains the same. External form has changed. From a ritual, now it has become a selfless endeavor where somebody serves the society in whichever different ways one can. But the value remained the same. Today what we are doing is, along with the external form of the ritual which we are discarding the value. That is the actual cultural decline. One is not saying that do not change the external ritual or don't adapt the form by changing times. That one has to adapt. Because if one doesn't do that, then anyway it is going to get perished. But see how to retain the values intact. So if the value for Shraddha is there, the value for Gayatri Mantra is there, the value for respecting the elders is there, that must remain the same. Its external expression may change. So some people do puja daily. But how do they do? You know that? This came long back, some 8-10 years back only it came. So traditionally one must have an altar and then flowers and then the water and then prasad and so many things. Now you don't need to do that. You have puja on computer only. So you put it on and Ganpati Bhagavan will be there or whichever deity. And then you click on Agarbatti symbol, Agarbatti will come out. When you click on flower, it will go and fall there. children will like it or not. Better than them sitting and not doing this puja and getting frustrated with that. They will enjoy it. At least the samskar has gone into their mind. So the value for it is gone into their mind. And if you explain to them this is what it is, forget children, elders all do that. So many of them they do. So value must remain the same. External form may change. And this culture of ours has been glorious. Krishna Bhagavan himself is one of the missionaries who is reviving this culture again. Vedavyasa was one of the earliest missionaries. Then Shankaracharya, then Vivekananda. I am just giving few names, but so many have come in between them also. After Shankaracharya, so many Ramanujacharya, Madhvacharya, Vallabhacharya, so many saints. One by one they have come. They have revived the culture of this country. That's the reason why we are where we are today. And with what we are today itself, we feel so pathetic. Imagine if this much also was not there, where would we would have been? I always ask that to myself. If I did not have self-knowledge and this knowledge of Vedanta, what would have been my life? If I had not come across the Gita, where would I be? Somewhere in the corporate world only, somewhere struggling, doing something. Nothing wrong in being in that world, but unaware, what is the purpose of life? Why am I in the rat race? What to do? So, yogo nashta parantapa, Bhagavan says that this, in time, this knowledge go through decadence. And he gives 3 reasons. He says, when the knowledge is with these 3 types of people, then this knowledge goes through decadence. First he says, Durbalan, those people who are very weak. These 3 reasons are given by Shankaracharya ji in his commentary. He says the people who are mentally very weak mind and they don't have inner strength, when this knowledge comes to them, they don't know its glory, they don't know its significance, they stop living that, they think it is not relevant in this stage of my life. Slowly that knowledge goes to decadence. So he says Durbalan. Then he says Ajitendriyaha, those who are not having sense control. So Vedanta is the science to know one's own self, and it requires certain amount of introvertedness. It is not saying you don't enjoy life at all. The declaration of Vedanta is very clear. You enjoy life, let not life enjoy you. Be a master, don't be a victim. Which means that one must have certain amount of introvertedness. That when I am studying, when I am doing reflection, when I am doing meditation, the mind should be focused in that. And I should be able to take that time out to do this. When there is no sense control, I can't take this time out. Most of the time will go only in enjoying in the senses, then get exhausted, then sleeping. Only these 2 will happen. Bhoga and Sushupti, sleep. This third one, which is a sattvic attempt to internalize the knowledge, to think, to reflect, to meditate, to have some peaceful time and not be a victim of the senses. That is very crucial. Only then Vedanta will be, what can we say? We can assimilate Vedanta. Otherwise it will remain here, intellectual information. But if it has to seep into the heart and then express through the hands, sense control is very important. So he says when people lose sense control, meaning they become more extrovert, more attached to sense pleasures, then this knowledge will go through decadence. This you will see applies not only in spiritual science, this applies everywhere. What is the appreciation of classical music and art forms which was there 20-30 years ago, and how is it today? Is it not that it has deteriorated? So many art forms will die only. One will not even know. So many traditions will not survive. Very few people are there now who are putting their time into all this. So the appreciation is going down. Why? Because instant gratification, extrovertedness, different ways of enjoyment, mind gets more easily fascinated by this. So when this knowledge comes to such people, Bhagavan says here that that knowledge will go through decline. So it is a great responsibility of every seeker of Vedanta to preserve the purity of this knowledge and to live in self-control. Then only this knowledge will not only remain, but we will be living models to other people who can be inspired that, oh, this person lives Vedanta principles and look at the life of this person. How is it? There is no greater commentary on Vedanta than that. And typically people judge every spiritual seeker by the capacity they have to control anger. If one is coming to spirituality and still getting angry, they will say, "Tumhari spirituality ka kya matlab?" So that's the visible external so-called benchmark to judge the person. I mean, we don't have to follow whatever they want us to do, but the point is that when we are able to live, then that knowledge is preserved. Otherwise it remains in the information bus. So one is the weak-minded people, second is those who don't have control over their senses, and third he says anadhikarinaha, those who are not qualified for Vedanta. Swamiji, we thought exactly reverse. Those who are all useless fellows, they come to Vedanta. Vedanta के लिए qualification चाहिए. Yes. 4 qualifications are required. Actually 5, not 4. 4, 5. One requires vivek, discrimination between real and unreal. Vairagya, dispassion. Then a set of 6 qualities, which is shama, mind control. Dhamma, sense control. Uparama, capacity to withdraw the mind. Titiksha, forbearance. Shraddha, faith. And samadhan, absorption of the mind. This is called Shatka Sampatti. And then Mumukshutvam, intense desire to be liberated now, here and now in this life. These are 4-fold qualification called as Sadhan Chatushtaya. And in these 4, to add to these 4, the 5th one, which is Guru or Ishwar Bhakti. If these 5 are there, then that person is fit to start the study of Vedanta. That's what our Shastra says. So, anadhikari means one who is not consciously cultivating these. So, if these 3 types of people or a combination of these 3 types of people get this knowledge, Bhagavan says that knowledge will go through decadence. So, the way to revive this knowledge is we must first get out of these 3. That is our practice. So many people who have been studying the Gita for a long time, coming to study groups for a long time, studying Vedanta, Upanishads. If we are not growing in these 5, that is the main reason why Vedanta doesn't bring about that unfoldment that Shastra promises. These 5 have to happen. And this is hard work, this is effort. That how can I cultivate these 5? So he says, Sakalene Mahata Yogo Nashta Parantapa. The word Nashta here doesn't mean destroyed, but Nashta here means that it goes through decline. So through time, in time, as the mind becomes grosser and grosser, that's why Vedavyasji wrote the Vedas, compiled them. Earlier it was all in the form of memory. Imagine if we have to learn Veda like that. Now we are so weak in memory, we don't know our own number. We have to save our phone number in our phone and check my number. What if my number is, somebody asks. Sometimes one doesn't know. Earlier, because we had to dial, and this phone did not have that address book or speed dial. long back, I don't know, maybe 10 years back, there used to be a diary, electronic diary. In that you store all the numbers, and then there is a separate phone. So every time one has to see the number and dial, so one used to remember. Now no, nothing. It's all there stored in the phone, and there is a speed dial button dabaya. Those times, the Vedic times, the entire knowledge of Veda. Why those times? Last century only. Not last century, I think this century. No, last century. Last century, there was this great Mahatma Swami Gangeshwaranand Maharaj. I don't know if some of you know about him. What a great master. He was blind, but he had entire Veda memorized, full. And Gangeshwaranandji's trust, even today, they print that whole Veda. And they give it to the institutions who are propagating the knowledge of Veda and who will take good care of that Veda. And Gurudev, Swamiji, Chinmayanandji had such great reverence for Gangeshwaranandji Maharaj. And he lived for 100 years and more. And so when his 100th year was being celebrated, so Gurudev did a yajna or a spiritual discourse in his honor. And he was blind, but he knew all the Vedas. He used to just recite them. So people wrote down. The entire Veda was compiled, printed. And this big, it is huge. Ved Bhagwan it is called. So they print that and they give. So in Powai we have one in our Siddhabari Ashram also. So they have given to many such organizations who will take good care of it. So this knowledge goes through that decline. When such masters are not there, and it comes to the hands of people who are not yet ready for this. So Bhagavan says that this knowledge, though I have given to you, this is the knowledge, sacred knowledge I have given to you. And why have I given this knowledge to you, Arjun? Very sweet thing Bhagavan says here. Saevayam maya tedya yoga prokta puratana. I have given to you this very ancient knowledge. Why have I given this to you? Bhaktosi me sakha cheti. That you are my bhakta and you are my friend also. Rahasyam yetad uttamam. This supreme secret I have shared with you because you are extremely dear to me. Imagine Bhagavan telling that to Arjun. What Arjun must have felt. Generally we tell Bhagavan, ki Bhagavan, we love you, you are dear to us. Bhagavan only told Arjun that Bhaktosi me sakha cheti. And it is not easy to accept one's own friend as a Lord or as the Guru. Because in friendship one is equal. Sakha literally means what, Saman Akhya, meaning those who are equal, those who are called together. So we always say Krishna Arjun, Krishna Sudama, Ram Lakshman, Bharat Shatrugna. We don't say Krishna Bhim. Because they are friends, very close friends, and they are equal to each other. So to consider Shri Krishna as Bhagavan and take him as a Guru and to surrender to him in the second chapter, Arjun did that. That took him also quite some time. And having done that, Bhagavan, when he accepted Arjun as a disciple, and then he has given. So he says, Bhaktosi me sakha cheti. You are my bhakta and you are my friend also. In that first he mentions bhakta, then he mentions friend. Because that's the transformation Arjun has gone through. So there are two types of people who are there. One are called bhakta or devotees. Another are called shishya or the disciples. Arjun was a sakha before, only a friend. So slowly when he surrendered, he transformed into shishya. Who is a shishya? A disciple is one who is having the thirst for knowledge and is ready to be in discipline. That person is called a disciple. Then there are bhaktas who are there. Very ordinary understanding of bhakta is somebody who is just devoted to the Lord. So there will be some people who are so just devoted, They don't want to know anything. Even if a guru is there or Mahatma is there, they will just go and sit. हम आपके दर्शन के लिए आए, अरे इतनी दूर से आए दर्शन. They'll just sit there, they'll stare at that Mahatma, maybe give some water, serve in some way. The desire for knowledge is not yet come. This is nothing wrong, there is nothing bad about this, but what will the Lord want or what will that Mahatma want? Is when this person gets that thirst to gain that knowledge or to be one with that supreme state. That is the reason why the Mahatma is there. And so a bhakta, a disciple, must be devoted. There are disciples who are not devoted. They are just disciples, they live in discipline, they gain the knowledge, but surrender has not happened in their heart. Forget surrender not happening. There are some disciples who get all the knowledge from the Guru, abandon the Guru and go away. Even that is okay. Guru doesn't want them to stay. And they go away and they start criticizing. That is called Jnana Ahankar. They may think that I am greater than the Guru also. I know more than the Guru. I have read more commentaries than the Guru. But what the Guru is living is something else only. So sometimes that happens. So Shishya also must be a bhakta. A disciple must get devoted. That is the true growth of a disciple. And a disciple also must be, a devotee also must be a disciple who lives in discipline, who has a thirst for knowledge. So as a seeker, where one is, one should find out that am I a disciple and a devotee? Am I just a devotee? Am I just a disciple? Now, when Bhagavan says all this, Arjun thinks, I am not such a fool to believe that you gave this knowledge to son. You were born with me. Meaning at the same time, just a little few years. So he says, Aparam bhavato janma, param janma vivasvata. He says, the son was there much, much before you. You are born now. Katham etad vijaniyam. How am I to know that you gave this knowledge before? Typical question. Any questioning intellect will have that. Simply don't try to fool me. But that is one of the things that a teacher has to cross. Not the teacher has to cross, the disciple has to cross. Is the mountain of skepticism. Any intelligent thinking person will not believe these kind of things which are said. They will question only. That skepticism will be there and it should be there. Because if they don't question that, a subtler aspect when it comes to their thinking will not open up only. That's why one questions. Gurudev used to say that doubts are the windows through which the teacher looks into the soul of the disciple. Or the eyes, whichever one says. So when Arjuna is asking, how am I even to believe that you were born now? How am I to believe that you gave the knowledge to son? Because remember, in this, one mistake which everyone does is we see Krishna as Krishna. But in the Gita, Krishna Bhagavan operates from 3 standpoints. Actually 4 standpoints. One, he operates as Shri Krishna, the son of Devaki and Vasudeva. That's why he says, Bhakto Sime Sakha Cheti. Sakha is as Krishna. Second, he operates as the Guru because he has surrendered, Arjuna surrendered. Third, he operates as Ishvara, the Supreme Lord. That's why he says, Bhakta, you are my devotee also. And fourth, he operates as non-dual Brahman, absolute infinite reality which is not conditioned by time, space and objects. These are 4 different standpoints from where Bhagavan operates in the Gita. So we should know from which standpoint he is talking. Typically difficulty happens is we don't know the standpoint or we mix up the standpoint. So Arjuna has done that same mistake here. He said, how am I? Because he is looking at Krishna only as Krishna. And his question is from standpoint of Krishna as a human being, as an individual here. But Bhagavan is not talking from his standpoint. How can he have been there when the creation? But Ishvara was always there. So now further he will go on to explain very important concept of Sanatana Dharma is Avatarvad and Punarjanma. So reincarnation and incarnation. So when the Jiva is born again, it is called reincarnation. But when Ishvara takes a form, that is called incarnation or avatar. That we will see in our session in February.